At the turn of the 20th century, a woman walked into the banks of Cleveland, Ohio, with a secret she let slip just carefully enough for everyone to hear. She was, she implied, the illegitimate daughter of Andrew Carnegie, the richest man in the world. On the strength of that whispered secret, bankers lined up to lend her millions. None of them dared to check. And that, exactly, was the trick. This is the story of Cassie Chadwick, and a con built entirely out of other people's discretion. Cassie Chadwick was born Elizabeth Bigley in Canada in 1857, and she had been running scams since she was a teenager: fake inheritances, bad checks, fortune-telling frauds. She'd served time. She reinvented herself repeatedly under different names. By the 1890s, remarried and respectable seeming in Cleveland as Mrs. Cassie Chadwick, wife of a prominent doctor, she was ready for her masterpiece. This was the Gilded Age, an era of vast, mysterious fortunes, where the super-rich were objects of endless fascination, and where a wealthy man having a secret illegitimate child was scandalous but entirely believable. The con began with a piece of theater. Chadwick arranged for a respected New York lawyer to accompany her on a visit to Andrew Carnegie's mansion. She went inside ostensibly to visit, while the lawyer waited outside in the carriage. In reality, she had a trivial, unrelated reason to be there. But the lawyer saw her enter the home of the richest man in America and emerge sometime later. On the way out, she accidentally dropped a promissory note, a forged IOU, supposedly signed by Andrew Carnegie, for a vast sum. The lawyer saw it. The implication was overwhelming: this woman had a private financial relationship with Carnegie himself. She let it be understood that she was his secret daughter, and that she stood to inherit a fortune of millions when he died, and that in the meantime he was quietly providing for her. She produced more forged notes, supposedly signed by Carnegie, totaling enormous sums. She let it be known, in confidence, to banker after banker. And here was the genius of it. To lend against these notes was hugely tempting, secured, apparently, by the wealth of the world's richest man and a guaranteed future inheritance. But to verify them, a banker would have to go to Carnegie and ask, in effect, "Is this woman your secret illegitimate daughter, and did you sign these?" No one wanted to be that person. The social risk of embarrassing Andrew Carnegie, of being indiscreet about a delicate private matter, felt greater than the financial risk of the loan. So the bankers stayed quiet and handed over the money, often at steep interest, assuming they'd be repaid handsomely from the inheritance. Over several years, Cassie Chadwick borrowed and spent the equivalent of tens of millions of dollars in today's money. She lived in extravagant splendor, famous in Cleveland for her spending. The scheme worked precisely as long as no one demanded their money back and no one asked Carnegie directly. It collapsed when one banker, a man who had lent her a fortune, finally pushed for repayment and began to scrutinize the notes too closely. The pressure mounted. Other lenders, hearing rumors, started to panic and call in their loans at once. And then the unthinkable question was finally asked of Andrew Carnegie himself. Carnegie's response was simple. He had never met the woman. He had no secret daughter. He had never signed a single one of the notes. In fact, Carnegie reportedly noted that he hadn't signed a personal promissory note in decades. Anyone in finance should have known the documents were implausible on their face. The forgeries were exposed. The banks realized the security behind millions in loans was worthless paper. Cassie Chadwick was arrested in 1904. The scandal was enormous. A woman had nearly bankrupted banks using nothing but a famous name and the reluctance of powerful men to ask an awkward question. She was convicted and sentenced to prison, where she died in 1907. Cassie Chadwick's con is one of the purest examples of a principle that runs through almost every fraud: the scam lives in the space where no one wants to verify. She didn't overpower the banker's judgment with a brilliant story. She exploited their manners. She built the con on a question that was socially radioactive to ask, and so it never got asked. The single phone call, or letter, or direct inquiry that would have ended everything was the one thing etiquette forbade. Con artists are experts at finding that space. Sometimes it's social discretion, as it was here. Sometimes it's the fear of looking foolish for not understanding a complex investment. Sometimes it's the urgency that makes you feel there's no time to check. Whatever the form, it's always the same gap, the moment where verifying feels more costly, more embarrassing, more rude, more inconvenient than simply believing. The lesson Cassie Chadwick teaches across more than a century is blunt. No name is too important to verify. The more a story relies on you not asking the obvious question, the more you need to ask it. Subscribe. New case every Friday.